Hello and welcome to Pure Theory Crafting for Marvel Avengers Alliance 2. Now this, while it will be the first video in the series, if you're looking at the playlist, is not the first time that I've recorded this particular video. When I first started this one, it unfortunately occurred before I had a decent headset and the audio quality was abysmal. So this is for Nebula, and it's a little bit hopefully clearer and cleaner, easier to understand, and easier to work with. For those who are just now joining and see this as the very first video that pops up, Pure Theory Crafting is a series of videos and posts that have kind of become misnamed over time. They started, like with this video and this character, with characters and heroes that I didn't have yet and wanted to come up with combinations and uses for. I wanted to try to understand what made every hero in this game unique, so that after all the heroes are done, we can start putting them together and make some real off-the-wall team combinations. Nebula is an in-game reward character, and I stated this at the first time I did this video. I'm going to say it again now. I feel that she is a very strongly an in-game reward hero and is meant to be that way. Nebula is unlocked for the completion of the task line for Chapter 3. At the time of this video, that is the highest and hardest PvE chapter currently released, although at the time of the re-release of this video, this current version, Chapter 4 is supposed to be on its way here sometime in the coming week. We'll have to see. We're going to go ahead, hop into the heroes list, and we're going to take a look at Nebula. I've got her at 3 stars. She's been there for a little while, almost purely because of the AP resources. This is such a restrictive resource, and I spend it freely on entirely too many characters. Don't follow my example. Pick your team and focus on them, please. Nebula is a high-speed, high-accuracy scrapper who kind of thinks she's an infiltrator. When you look at her and you see her class, remember that when you fought her as an epic boss, she was an infiltrator there. And I'm kind of convinced that her class is a mistake. I believe that she was meant to be an infiltrator. I believe that she works well as it. She has an odd stealth focus, and we'll see this as we get into her abilities and her passive. At the time of this video, there are some bugs with Nebula. We do have to pay attention to those as we go into them. It is primarily with her innate, but we'll still work our way through. Looking at her stats, speed and accuracy. For a 3-star level 30 character, anytime that you see that 2,000 points, it means that they've dumped an overly large portion of their stats into it. Her health and defense suffer as a result from this. Her evasion and attack are acceptable, but her attack will not be boosted by anything else. She is all about the speed, she's all about the accuracy. She needs, while she's capable of some great damage, anything that brings her attack up will only assist. Her evasion, largely irrelevant, in part because of how soft and squishy she is. I do not encourage the use of Nebula in PvP. I have tried it. It's painful. There are tougher characters who can do what she does. There's a reason she's not part of the current meta, and even with her passive, it still wouldn't quite work the same. Or sorry, not her passive, her passive too. But also with her innate, even if that were not bugged, her innate wouldn't necessarily change that much. Her leader's bonus, she is all about the offense. Like many scrappers, she's all about the offense. Not every one of them. I did just do a video for Age of Ultron Thor, and he's pretty tough, kind of defense-oriented. But she is attack and accuracy based. Her aggression is one of the best ways to actually raise her attack. Her actual leader's bonus, simply putting her in the leadership slot, in the very first slot on your team, will increase her overall attack by 10%. Her accuracy starts high, stays high, and just like her speed, those two get kind of obscene. She's a very fast character. Her passive, Cybernetic Enhancements, restores health slowly over time. She's not built to take a hit, but she's built to recover from one. We'll find as we go through here, especially if her innate ever gets fixed, that she is designed to remove herself as a target from the battlefield. And in doing so, she gives her passive a chance to recover her health. It works much like the Rejuvenating EISO. I think it's on par with the Rejuvenating EISO. It's definitely weaker than the buff of a similar name that causes healing over time. It's a way for her to mitigate the damage that she has taken through things like area of effect attack. She needs a tank. She will go down quickly if she's a primary target. Her defense and her health are terrible. But it's a way for her to kind of manage taking damage over time effects, or anytime that an area of effect attack has been launched. And it's a way for her to attempt to recover. This gives us some freedom with her EISOs. I know I call them EISOs. I know they're also listed as ISOs. I do it because of Marvel Avengers Alliance 1 and the habit there of consistently adding new types of ISO 8. So I'm still calling them EISOs out of pure habit. Yes, they are ISOs. They are ISO slots. She is a stamina and combo point user. This has popped up a few times now in the Pure Theory Crafting videos, as this is the very first one, and as every video is meant to be completely standalone, I'll go over it again in detail and share a little bit of the math and tricks on it. Stamina starts at 100. It starts the fight completely full. It regenerates 40 at the start of every action Nebula gets. Anything that gives Nebula a free attack or a free turn, or not a free attack because those are actual things, a free turn or a free action or anything that makes her go again, will cause her to regenerate 40 stamina right then and there as well. Every time she pops up on the turn bar, she's getting 40 back. And we will use that to design a pair of potential builds for her at the end. Nebula is split between shock damage and blunt damage. And they are typically range shock and melee blunt. She follows two distinctly separate paths when it comes to her abilities. And they are very nearly equally split. Stamina is spent on moves that generate combo points. Combo points, which start at 0 and stack up to 5, are spent on combo point finishing moves. She has 3. Most characters who have combo points or retaliation points as a mechanic will have 5 combo point generating moves or buff moves, and 3 combo point spending finishing moves. And what's unique about those finishing moves is that not only do they not cost stamina, but they gain a bonus amount of damage based on the number of combo points spent. It is roughly 20% per point spent, up to a maximum of 100%. In terms of math, if the attack is going to do 100 damage, and she fires it off at 3 combo points for plus 60% damage, it's going to do about 160. If she saves it until she has 5 and fires it off then, she's going to do 200 damage. The difference between 160 and 200 is only about a 25% increase. So if you think you're able to kill the enemy with just 3 combo points, it's definitely viable to fire it off early. The builds that I'm going to give towards the end of the video, after we go through the abilities and those ISO slots in her grid, they are based around a specific order and chain of attacks designed to allow her to start at 100 stamina and end at 100 stamina. Looking at those abilities now, this is actually one of those builds kind of put into place. Concussive Blast starts us off. This is a ranged shock attack. It does start normal, it does go up to fast. I say that Nebula is a in-game reward character and is designed for in-game heroes because so much of what makes her good could make her great if you take her to 4-star. There are a lot of heroes who run around out there whose abilities peak, they cap at about 2 or 3 star. They don't gain any new debuffs, they don't gain any speed increase. The only thing that goes up in those last level or 2 is the damage rating. This is not true for her. This attack, for instance, is a normal speed attack. It does fairly solid damage. It does apply Static Shock and Stumbling. Static Shock is a wonderful debuff for a shock build. Static Shock is one of the damage over time effects, and it triggers its damage, and the damage is based on the enemy health. It actually scales up some with enemy health. It triggers it whenever a shock attack tag, which has that bright yellow, electric yellow tag, is used against any enemy. All instances of static shock along the enemy line will trigger. If all 3 enemies have static shock, and this only targets 1 enemy, static shock is triggered on every point in the enemy line. Fast attack characters who can launch more attacks in a smaller time frame will make better use of this particular debuff than slower, heavier hitting characters like Thor. He can still do it, and he can still set it off, but without getting as many turns, more of the damage comes from him and less comes from the debuff. This is a core tenet of static shock teams. I use a very simple rubric as I go through these videos. Roughly 120 damage is good for fast. So this is a little bit weak as far as fast moves go, and it's made up for by the fact that it applies static shock and can give 2 combo points. That 60 stamina is important. I do not know that it started there. I have this move up at 3-star, but it needs to get the 4-star for the damage to really match the overall speed of it. This is especially true in a static shock team, which needs to be fast in order to make the full to gain the full extent of its effectiveness. Focus Spite. This is a pretty solid finishing move. It is maybe my least favorite of the 3. It is her starting finishing move, which is why instead of costing stamina, it costs all combo points. Exploit Weakness increases the damage of this move by 50% if the target has a physical debuff. Static Shock counts, but so do several others. This move is Seeking. It can target stealthy characters. This is at 1-star, which means it has all of these by default. This is what I mean about abilities that kind of peak early. Every time you star this up, the only thing that increases is the damage. It is slow, and it is, I think it's her second highest, or maybe even her highest, listed damage finishing move. If 249 does not look terribly high for a finishing move, it's because you have to expect it to be doubled. And if you go up against the target with a physical debuff, you're looking at something along the lines of 600 to 650 damage rating. That is where the raw damage of this comes from. It is not a complex mechanic, which is part of the reason why it is her 1-star starting finishing move. Calculated Strike. Melee Blunt. This is not a range shock move. Speed is fast. I have it at 3 stars because I used it with a build. It gives Focused. She is a high accuracy character. 25% increase on her already high accuracy just takes it even higher and allows her to chain multiple critical hits. We will find that there is a very distinct use for this. Make note of the number of combo points generated by each move. Concussive Blast gave us 2 for 60 stamina. This gives us 1 for 50. And we'll be using this as part of the build. At 4-star upgrades, this drops to 25 stamina. That is pretty important. Since you regenerate 40 stamina per round, 25 stamina means that you can use it every round. You're gaining stamina for the turn. You're only really getting back 15. You're not getting the full 40 because you're spending 25 of it. But it's still a net gain. 125 for a fast move is fully acceptable. Plus it gives focus and debuffs. This is a great... It's a tertiary move. It's a third move. You will have a builder, you will have a finisher, and you will have a tertiary move that helps the other 2 out. This is a great 3rd slot move, and we'll use it in one of the builds. Eradication. Unlike many characters who have 3 finishing moves, most of them have their finishing moves. One is a 1-star, one is 2, one is the 3rd-star ability. She actually has 2 in her 1-star abilities, which means you'll draw Eradication pretty quickly out of the red canisters. Again, it gets that 100% damage based on combo points. Again, it is a clever maneuver, so it gains its damage if the attacker has a mental buff, and it is range shock. This is the only range shock finishing move that she has. The final damage is actually the lowest of the 3. We are going to take advantage of this by using Opportunistic. If the enemy is defeated, if this is the final shot, she gets another turn right off the bat, instantly regenerating 40 stamina and starting all over. She will be back at 0 combo points, but we'll make use of this with the Static Shock team in order to make her faster. The slow speed of this move is offset Buy opportunistic. Because once you start that next turn, and since you have no combo points, you can't chain this move again. Instead, you have to use something else. And her speed will not be slow. It'll be determined by the speed of that second move. So you will want to use Eradication whenever you get the chance to use it to kill someone, so that you can turn around and fire off another. Between the 150% bonus damage here, this is still about a 500 point damage move, and it's still between... Since it sets off Static Shock, there are way too many S's in that sentence. Since it sets off Static Shock, it's going to do more damage than it looks like when you see that 211. This actually does make her a very fast attacker. It's part of the build that I have her running right now. Shock Baton. This is her only melee shock. Now, it is a fast speed move that does generate 2 combo points, and it does cost 50 stamina. It eventually goes up to very fast, because her shock moves are all about speed. It does apply hindered, it does apply neutralized. These make it somewhat situational. Hindered is always good, but she's only applying it to one target. Neutralized is not bad when you're dealing with characters who specialize in physical buffs, but you kind of need to know that that's what you're going up against. That said, I have this in the 3rd slot because it's not my primary builder, nor is it my primary damage dealer. It's that utility 3rd slot move. The high rate of speed, the 2 combo points, and the acceptable stamina, we will find as we get into the builds, allows this to be inserted as needed without throwing you off. There is a 2-star move that I don't have. We'll see that before I do her final finishing move. Parting Shots is... it's okay. It does drop to 50 stamina. It does eventually drop all the way down to 25. This is where that 4-star invest in her several times is kind of shown again. Wide Open is an amazing debuff, but it's best applied not by your main damage dealers, and Nebula is a high single target damage dealer. It's best applied by your support, or rather, by the people who won't immediately take advantage of it. Nebula can apply this, but odds are somebody else is going to get their turn and make use of it. And you really want Wide Open to be there for your damage-dealing characters to take advantage of, because they make the best use out of it. It is only 1 combo point. It is range shock. It is kind of that filler 3rd move. Let's take a look at her final finishing move, Furious Combo. This is a multi-hit chain, 6 or 7 hits. And that's important because of the brutal property. Every time this attack crits, the damage of all subsequent hits is increased. This becomes her highest damage move because of her obscenely high accuracy and brutal maneuver. This also has deadly precision, and this is a beautiful thing. Usually, characters with finishing moves who have one that has brutal, it doesn't necessarily have another damage increaser on it. Deadly precision is very, very powerful. The bigger the difference between Nebula, who stacks accuracy, and the target, who doesn't necessarily do so, the more damage this move is going to do on top of brutal, on top of finishing move. Its final damage is actually listed somewhere in the middle. It's not huge, but it gets there. This is an immensely damaging move. Her final one has a very rare property. To my knowledge, there are exactly 3 users of the ambushing property in the game. Ambushing says it is delayed. Unlike an actual delayed action, which has the delayed property, this move cannot be interrupted by her being stunned. Because during the ambushing status, while she's waiting for the actual attack to go off, she is off of the battlefield. She vanishes completely. She cannot be affected by she can't be targeted, so no single target attacks. She cannot be affected by area of effect attacks. She cannot be affected by area of effect buffs from your side. She's just not on the battlefield. She's not there. Ambushing can fail. But the only way that it can fail is if her target dies before the turn actually comes off, which is not always a bad thing. But do watch your targets that way. Set ambushing against a target who you think is going to last until it goes off, or else it is interrupted, and when that happens, what you'll see is that the 70 stamina cost is still deducted, but you don't get the 2 combo points. This move has a cooldown. It can only be used at best every other turn. In the build in which we will use this, we're going to take advantage of that. We're going to work this into the combo as a consistent thing. This is part of how Nebula stays alive. And it's very useful in PvP if you take her there. I don't advise it, but it helps her survive that first opening onslaught wave by simply not being there. Her high rate of speed means that she frequently goes first or second, and from that point on, until everybody else has gotten their turn, she's not available to target. It does apply Confident. It doesn't benefit from Confident, but it applies it and prepares it for the next one. We will make heavy use of this, and we will chain these together. This is a mental buff. Its final cost is 60 stamina. We will do the turn order based on 70 stamina. So 3 stars is good enough. 4 stars will help, but isn't necessary for the overall build that we will do and the kind of rotation that it fits into. That takes a look at the abilities. Let's take a look at her tactical. Her tactical, for stamina using characters, the normal trend that I try to do is make builds that never touch the tactical, because it's primarily there to give back 40 stamina without spending it. This move does generate 1 combo point. It is very fast. Stamina users have very fast tacticals. It grants her stealthy. It's why none of her other abilities granted to her, but it is available to her. Now, we've already looked through the abilities. She has no stealthy maneuvers. She has nothing that takes advantage of stealthy that way. But it does remove her from the battlefield as a target for a little while longer. Nebula's thing is not about soaking hits, it's about never being targeted in the first place. It also grants her sharpshooting. Half of her moves are melee and will not benefit, but those range shock moves will. And so we will deliberately insert her tactical into the build that needs it, that makes best use of it. And we will set up her melee build so that we never, ever touch this tactical, ever. Now, stealthy does add 20% to your damage. It does. But we will find, if it were not bugged, that her innate will let us do this anyway. Father's Training does not currently work as of the time at which I'm recording this video. It has been a known bug for quite some time. We have no idea if or when it's going to be fixed. It may be the patch this week. It may not be for 6 or 8 months. It is probably, because it does not cripple Nebula, and it doesn't, it, not having this is kind of minor, actually. What this does is that when you are in stealth and you break stealth, you gain the revealed status. Until revealed wears off, and it cannot be simply removed, you cannot re-enter stealth. What this does for her is it lets her lose revealed to re-enter stealth as soon as she hits a 5th combo point. If she goes above that and earns a 6th at the same time, that's okay. It's really as long as that 5th combo point is filled. You'll actually see Father's Training pop up on the screen. It just won't do anything. It won't give you stealth. It won't lose revealed. Right now, this is bugged. What it's meant to be used for is that 20% attack bonus from stealthy, and because when Nebula was designed and released, stealthy allowed you to bypass protection. So it let Nebula pick her target. That portion of it is no longer in play. You can't bypass protect while stealthy anymore. That doesn't happen. So, the only benefit she gets from stealth, from Father's Training, will be a 20% attack at the point at which she reaches 5 combo points. This is meant to increase the damage of her finishing moves. And that's really it. It originally was meant to increase their damage and let you pick their target. Nowadays, with stealth being somewhat nerfed, losing that ability to bypass protect, now it only means you're not getting that extra 20% damage on the finishing move. That's it. That's the only thing that you're losing for this being bugged. Still, I'd like to see it fixed, because now she essentially has no innate. Let's go ahead. Let's take a look at this particular list. Her grid, her patchwork, her quilt, whatever you want to call these, there is no attack. There is no health. There's no defense. It is all focused on 3 stats. And evasion, if she is running with a tank, doesn't help her all that much. Her evasion starts acceptably high, so I wouldn't worry about these. In fact, if once you have a decent solid tank, and considering that you would have only gotten her by clearing Chapter 3 on Heroic, you should probably have a decent tank. Those 2 purple slots I view as excellent candidates for the coordinated isotypes. Sorry, not coordinated, chaotic. Chaotic isotypes. In other words, go ahead and boost the rest of her stats instead of focusing solely on evasion. Accuracy and speed, she makes use of these. Deadly precision really plays off the accuracy, especially her shock build wants that high rate of speed. She is exceptionally fast. Fill these with yellow and white. That is okay. Make them the right type there, and put the chaotics in these in the purple slots if you're going to use them. Now, looking at her set bonuses, most of her debuffs are 80%, so experimental is not bad for her. Her actual defenses overall are so abysmally low, but she does, between her ability to enter stealth via her passive, her ambushing status, and her natural health regeneration, I would prioritize offensive sets for Nebula while running her with the tank, and just not giving her any of the 3 defensive sets. Let her passive act like the rejuvenating set and recover her health for her. Don't stress the impenetrable set. Don't stress the barricading set. You really want a tank for Nebula. She's entirely too fragile. She makes almost no use of the impenetrable set because her final health pool means it's going to be broken in the first hit. And it's going to be broken by far enough in the first hit that it will take multiple rounds for her passive to bring her back above 90%. Barricading has some worth, but one of the biggest dangers in PvE content for low health characters is damage over time effects, and barricading doesn't help her there. Damage over time effects go right through shields. So I would actually focus her on her offense. That's what she's there for. She makes good use of coordinated. Her free attack is a ranged shock attack. To my knowledge, it follows the animation of Concussive Blast, to my knowledge, that very first ability of hers. And I believe it actually applies Static Shock. Over on the Reddit, there is a list of free attacks, and I'm pretty sure hers applies Static Shock. It definitely sets it off. Anything that allows you to spread Static Shock among the enemy line faster is a plus for any kind of a shock team. So if you're going to run her as that, I really highly stress coordinated. If you're going to do her melee build, which has some of the highest bursts of single damage for her, coordinated loses some effectiveness because it doesn't trigger during the ambushing status. For that build, you can make use of Veiled, you can make use of defensive abilities. For her PvP build, I do not recommend her shock setup. For her PvP build, I would recommend her melee setup and then run her with defensive sets and Veiled. So that would be the 2 big sets here for her. Coordinated, good for good for her shock build. It's okay for her melee build just because she never gets to take advantage of it. What we're looking at here are what I consider the core 3 abilities for a static shock build, although in general practice, you're only going to use 2 of them. And that is because we're going to weave in her tactical. In fact, when we start out, we're going to start with her tactical. We're going to do it right off the bat. And we're going to do that because it's going to apply sharpshooting, and we're going to take advantage of that for her ranged attacks. Follow this up with Concussive Blast not once, but twice. Apply Static Shock to a couple of different people. At 60 stamina, you can potentially use this 3 times in a row before you hit 0. Your tactical didn't cost you any and gave you a combo point. 2 uses of this will give you 5. 2 uses of this will drop you first to 40, you'll regen to 80, you'll drop to 20. 20 is a magic number when it comes to stamina cost, because over the course of 2 turns you will regenerate 80 and that can put you to 100. Those 2 turns come when you use a finishing move. You'll regenerate 40, but you won't spend any on Eradication. You'll just spend your combo points. This will leave you at 60, and if you kill someone, and that opportunistic round triggers, you get your next turn, and you recover 40 stamina, you're back at 100. You can use this particular chain of her tactical and 2 concussive blasts, followed by a 5-point eradication in any order. If you don't take damage from her and lose her sharpshooting, it's okay to then do like a concussive blast and then her tactical and then another concussive blast. Any of that'll work. Any combination of 2 of this and your tactical followed by eradication will typically see you restored up to 100 stamina. One trick with this move that allows you to clear waves faster, because this is a PvE build, because of opportunistic, you can fire a concussive blast and use opportunistic on the next round to kill that individual. Killing them lets you go again and fire off another concussive blast. This means that you can kill and wound, then kill and wound again, then kill and wound again, alternating these 2 back to back, and essentially doing this and then this every individual turn that Nebula gets. This is not quite the same inevitable chain, unbroken chain that Gamora can do if she crits, or that Angela can do with her slash that has opportunistic, impetuous cleave. But it does allow her to take 2 turns every turn, and if you have a reliable way to apply static shock, either via concussive blast or the coordinated set for her, or a teammate, you can chain moves back to back very fast to trigger static shock repeatedly while killing off all kinds of little guys as you go through. For the 3rd move, I have put in Shock Baton. It's another shock move. It does go very fast. Because it's 50 stamina and close to that 60 mark, and generates 2 combo points, the idea is that Shock Baton can be used in place of Concussive Blast without throwing off that overall rotation anytime you need Hindered and Neutralized. In fact, if you're using Eradication every turn, even just at 2 combo points where it's 140% of its damage, then you can use Shock Baton to apply Hindered and just basically slow down the enemies before you kill them the next round. Again, she's fast, and this is very fast, so she's going to get her turns very quickly. What makes Eradication so deadly is the combination of Clever Maneuver and Sharpshooting. Clever Maneuver is a mental buff. As soon as it's on here, this gains a 90% damage increase. Stacked with 100% potential damage increase from the combo points, or even the minimum of the 40% damage increase because her other 2 applied 2 combo points, you're looking at this being tripled, or maybe just increased by, 200 to 250%. Even if you're just using it with 2 combo points. This is a hard-hitting, fast pair of shots. It is a 2-shot move, basically. With her high accuracy and with the high damage we can build up to her on this, the big multipliers, she can use this to very quickly, just using 1 or 2 combo points, clear through waves of enemies faster than most other characters, maybe not all, but she can clear them very fast, and then save up that big 5-point chain for the bosses at the end where she needs that big heavy hit. Like most Static Shock builds, this is all about the speed and how fast you can trigger that debuff. This shows off Nebula's raw speed. The next build will show off that raw accuracy. And this one is based around melee. And the abilities are going to be used in roughly this order. Her 3-star ability, Strike from the Darkness, is going to be our opener. We are actually going to aim to use this every turn that it is off cooldown. So every other turn will be Strike from the Darkness. This takes her out of the battlefield via ambushing. It's why this is the build that's slightly better for PvP. It means that half the time, she's not even targetable. Its speed is normal, but her own speed is fast enough that it's not uncommon for when the ambushing status finally concludes, she is the next person to get the turn, and she can go straight into the next attack. Confident is amazing in PvP. Right now, stacking evasion is the way to go. Nebula kills Black Widow very effectively because she'll get the stat bonus from being a scrapper, and she can land shots that other characters just can't. Where other characters glance Black Widow because she gets something like a 45% evasion bonus, Nebula can counter that with her own high accuracy and the 40% accuracy bonus from Confident. The middle attack. You have two options here with this build. You can go straight into the finishing move with 2 combo points and it'll work. Or you can go into a intermediary move, which is calculated strike, to gain the focus buff and increase your accuracy even further. In PvP, you may not want to do this because even though this is a fast move, it does kind of leave her open for a turn, and the goal is to not be leaving her open any longer than necessary. The high increase to accuracy and the 1 combo point here is meant to be used with a 4-star. I don't have this at 4-star, and that's important. At 4-star, because it's only 25 stamina, and because Strike from the Darkness is 70, 2 70 stamina point moves can be used consecutively before you're out of stamina. If you're trying to use a 70, then a 50, and then a 70 again, you run out, and you have to use her tactical. A 70, then a 25, then a 70 again can be used indefinitely. Meaning that this move really needs to be at 4-star to really find its place in this particular build. Why would we even include it for the accuracy? Because our final move, Furious Combo, takes advantage of that accuracy twice over with Brutal and with Deadly Precision. High evasion characters like Wasp and Black Widow, they stack their evasion, not necessarily their accuracy, allowing Nebula to do ever-increasing amounts of damage. This is, again, it's like a 5 or a 6 hit move, and I have had the final move of this chain hit like epic Yellow Jacket, hit him for like 1,800, somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 damage on the final hit of the chain. This ends up being like an 8,000 or a 9,000 damage move. It is designed to hit targets who you can successfully crit against, and it will kill them in a single barrage, even fired at 2 combo points. Which means that a Strike from the Darkness can lead straight into this. The additional bonus from Focused here means that you can do this. It means that you can do 1, 2, 1, 3, or especially once Focus is up, or if you get it from someone else, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, and just unload with as many brutal strikes from Furious Combo as you can possibly sneak in. This is probably between the two where her shock build was built around her speed, and it really works for that. It is an obscenely high rate of speed. This takes advantage of her accuracy and translates it into very large amounts of damage. She kills people very quickly with this build too. And in PvP, especially with the ambushing status, this should be your build of choice, if you're going to use her for PvP at all. Now in this build, you're going to see some definite loss of use from Coordinated. Half your time or more, you're in the ambushing status, and during that status, you can't counter with Coordinated. So if you're going to use this build, load her with defensive stats, with defensive sets. Go ahead and give her Veiled, give her... the only debuff you're really applying is Exposed. Everything here is already 100%, so skip Experimental. Give her Veiled, and then give her like every other one of the defensive sets that you can load on her. If you're going to take her into PvP, load her up for survivability, and bring her with this. And it can work. It does. It actually does work. It doesn't fit my playstyle, nor does it fit the rest of my team, but it's viable. Speaking of PvP, Nebula has one of the nastiest trials in the game. I've also seen this on Falcon. She does have to win 5 PvP battles in a row without a loss consecutively in order to reach 4 stars. I did this at the start of a PvP season. I'm stressing this now because a new PvP season is about to begin. When it does, that is the time to do this particular challenge, this particular trial. She has it, Falcon has it, right now in PvP, it's a really hard thing to do because PvP is such a, like, throw it up in the air potluck that if you aren't using 3 characters from the meta, you're not likely to win more than 2 or 3 battles in a row anyway. And yeah, Nebula will just kind of, while you're trying to get her up to 4 stars, she will just kind of die from it. So focus on this particular trial at the start of a new PvP season when you've got a higher chance of fighting weaker teams. Until PvP changes, that trial is very tricky to pull off. I'm going to wrap the video up. I'm going to throw out the same shoutouts that I threw out originally. This is going to be the first video of the Pure Theory Crafting lineup. So, for those who have watched this one, I want you to know that this video is meant to be a standalone for Nebula, and that every other video in the series is also meant to stand alone. I will explain stamina and combo points every time I get to a stamina and combo point user. I will explain the sets and why they're good for every character. You don't have to feel obligated to watch every video. Instead, when you're interested in a character, jump straight to that one. You're not really missing anything if the other characters don't catch your eye. I want these to be a resource to new players, and I want these to be a way to help you decide if a character and the intricacies of it intrigue you enough that you want to drop resources into them, especially that ever-limited AP up there at the top. That is by far the most limiting resource in this game in the long run, and it is in such high demand that maybe Nebula won't be your choice, but maybe you'll find some characters on here who you do want to invest in. My original shoutouts back to Exodex and to a couple of the others in there. I have gotten a lot of kickback and a lot of feedback from Commander Odom, who goes by Starside. I've gotten some kickback from Alisor, from Pandribble, from Vortex, from I Play the Mic, and from several others of consistent individuals on feedback over on the Reddit. There is a companion post to this on the Reddit. I will put the link below the video. And go over there, see what other people have pitched in, and if you were a heavy Nebula user, go over there and pitch in yourself. Let us know what you do with her. While I've had the chance to test her some, she's not part of my front line, and many of the characters I do these for, and the origin of the name, are characters who I've never actually tried out. I look at this as a puzzle, as a test. What can I do when looking at the characters in detail that may give us some abilities that work, may give us some builds that work in tandem, and what can we do when looking at potential team builds down the line? Until that time, and until you watch another video, if you can stand to listen to me for another hour, this is I, Hoagland. I'm out.